The wedding bell blues. Natalie Brooks adjusted the delicate lace of her bridesmaid dress for the 100th time, her fingers trembling slightly as classical music floated through the grand ballroom of Riverside Estate. Around her, 300 guests whispered and laughed, their champagne glasses catching the afternoon sunlight that streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows. Everyone looked happy. Everyone except her. She forced herself to smile as another guest passed by, offering congratulations meant for someone else. The woman paused, confused, then realized her mistake and hurried away. Natalie was used to it. Being an identical twin meant constantly being mistaken for Camilla, constantly living in her shadow, constantly being the other one. Today was supposed to be different. Today she had promised herself she would be genuinely happy for her sister. After all, Camilla deserved joy. Camilla deserved love. The fact that the man giving her that love was James Whitmore, Natalie's boyfriend of 3 years until 8 months ago, was just an unfortunate twist of fate. The perfect ceremony. The ceremony had been flawless. Camilla looked radiant in her custom silk gown, every inch the blushing bride. James had gazed at her with such adoration that Natalie felt her heart crack just a little more. She had stood beside her sister, holding the bouquet with steady hands, smiling through every vow that should have been hers. Now, at the reception, Natalie found herself at table 17. Tucked away near the back of the ballroom, the seating chart had placed her with distant cousins and family friends who barely knew her name. She watched as Camilla and James glided across the dance floor, lost in their own perfect world. A waiter refilled her water glass. She thanked him quietly and took a long sip, wishing it was something stronger. Her mother caught her eye from across the room and gave her a sympathetic smile. Natalie looked away quickly. Sympathy was almost worse than being forgotten. The stranger's approach, she was contemplating a discreet exit, when a shadow fell across her table. Natalie looked up to find a man standing there, tall and impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His dark hair was styled with casual precision, and his eyes held an intensity that made her breath catch. "This seat taken?" he asked, his voice smooth and confident. Natalie glanced around the table. Everyone else had abandoned their places to mingle or dance. "Help yourself," she replied, trying to sound casual despite her curiosity. He sat down gracefully, studying her with open interest. "You must be Natalie. I'm Damien Cole." The name registered immediately. Damien Cole was one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the country. Having built a tech empire from his dorm room innovation, his company now dominated the artificial intelligence market. What was someone like him doing at her sister's wedding? "An unexpected connection. James and I went to business school together," Damien explained, as if reading her thoughts. "Though I haven't seen him in years. I was surprised to get the invitation." Natalie nodded, unsure what to say. Up close, Damien was even more striking. There was something magnetic about him, a quality that went beyond mere good looks. He carried himself with the ease of someone who had never doubted his place in the world. "You're not enjoying yourself," he observed. It wasn't a question. She considered lying, but found herself telling the truth instead. "Weddings aren't really my thing. Even when it's your identical twin getting married. Especially then." The words slipped out before she could stop them. Damien's expression shifted, understanding flickering in his eyes. "James was yours first." Natalie felt heat rise to her cheeks. "It doesn't matter now. They're happy. That's what counts." "Noble sentiment," Damien said. "But I doubt it makes sitting here any easier." She met his gaze, startled by his directness. Most people tiptoed around uncomfortable truths. Damien seemed to prefer confronting them head-on, the bold proposal, before she could respond. A ripple of excitement moved through the crowd. Camilla was preparing to toss her bouquet. Natalie watched as single women gathered on the dance floor, laughing and jostling for position. She remained firmly in her seat. The bouquet sailed through the air in a perfect arc. It landed directly in front of Natalie's table, petals scattering across the white tablecloth. Several women turned to stare at her, packed. Natalie felt frozen. She couldn't pick it up. She couldn't move. The moment stretched painfully until Damien reached over and collected the flowers. placing them gently on the table between them. "Crisis averted," he murmured. Something about his calm intervention broke through her carefully maintained composure. Natalie felt tears threatening and blinked them back furiously. She would not cry here. Not in front of everyone. Damien leaned forward slightly. "I have a proposition for you." She looked at him warily. "What kind of proposition?" "A dangerous offer. I need a partner for some upcoming events. Business dinners, charity functions, that sort of thing. The press has been relentless about my personal life lately, and I'd prefer to control the narrative." Natalie stared at him. "You want me to pretend to be your girlfriend? I want you to stand beside me and look like you belong there. Nothing more complicated than that." His expression was unreadable. "You'd be compensated, of course. Generously." "I don't need your money," she said sharply. "Then do it for yourself." Damien's voice softened. "Right now, everyone in this room sees you as the other twin, the one who lost. Give them something else to see. Give yourself something else to be." The words struck deeper than Natalie expected. She glanced around the ballroom, at the pitying looks and whispered conversations, at her sister dancing with the man she had once loved, at her mother's worried expression, at the empty chairs surrounding her table. The decision, how long? She heard herself ask. 3 months. Long enough to satisfy the gossip cycle and get the media off my back? And after that, we go our separate ways. No strings, no complications. Just a mutually beneficial arrangement. Natalie knew she should refuse. This was exactly the kind of impulsive decision that usually ended badly. But something in Damien's eyes made her hesitate. He wasn't looking at her with pity or curiosity. He was looking at her like she was capable of more than she believed. The band struck up another romantic song. James and Camilla kissed as guests applauded. Natalie felt something shift inside her, a spark of defiance against the role she had always played. "At one condition," she said quietly. "This stays professional. No real feelings, no crossing lines." Damien extended his hand. "You have my word." Natalie hesitated for just a moment before shaking his hand. His grip was firm and warm, sending an unexpected current through her. "When do we start?" she asked. Damien smiled, and for the first time that day, Natalie felt something other than heartbreak. She felt possibility. "Right now," he said, standing and offering his arm. "Dance with me. Let's give them something to talk about." As they walked onto the dance floor together, Natalie felt every eye in the room turned toward them. For once, she wasn't being compared to her sister. She was being seen as herself. And when Damien pulled her into his arms and the music swelled around them, she realized that sometimes the best decisions were the ones that made absolutely no sense at all. The wedding she had dreaded had just become the beginning of something entirely unexpected. Something that might break her heart even more thoroughly than James ever could, or might finally help her discover who she was meant to be. Playing the part 3 days after the wedding, Natalie stood in front of her bathroom mirror, barely recognizing herself. The woman staring back wore a cream designer dress that hugged her curves perfectly, her hair styled in soft waves that framed her face. A makeup artist Damien had sent over had transformed her features with subtle elegance. She looked expensive. She looked confident. She looked like someone who belonged in a billionaire's world. Her phone buzzed with a message from Damien. "Car arriving in 10 minutes. Tonight is just dinner with potential investors. Follow my lead and be yourself." Be yourself. The instructions seemed almost laughable. Natalie had spent her entire life trying to figure out who that was. It's always defined by being Camilla's twin, James's girlfriend, someone's daughter or sister. Never just Natalie. The black sedan arrived exactly on time. Inside, Damien waited, looking effortlessly sophisticated in a navy suit. His eyes swept over her appreciatively as she slid into the seat beside him. "You look perfect," he said simply. "I feel like an imposter," Natalie admitted. Damien's expression softened. "Good, that means you're paying attention. Half the people we'll meet tonight are imposters too. They've just had more practice." Into the Lion's Den, the restaurant, was the kind of place Natalie had only read about in magazines. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over tables where power brokers made deals that shaped industries. The maitre d' greeted Damien by name and led them to a private corner where 3 people already waited. Robert Ashford rose to greet them, his silver hair and calculating smile marking him as someone accustomed to getting what he wanted. Beside him sat 2 associates whose names Natalie immediately forgot, her attention focused on maintaining her composure. "Damien," Robert said warmly, though his eyes were cold. "And who is this lovely companion?" "Natalie Brooks," Damien replied smoothly, his hand resting lightly on the small of her back. "Natalie, Robert Ashford. We've been negotiating a partnership for months." Robert's handshake was firm, assessing. "Brooks? Any relation to Camilla Brooks, who just married James Whitmore?" Natalie felt the familiar sting, but kept her smile steady. "My twin sister." "Fascinating," Robert said, though his tone suggested he found it anything but. Small world. Throughout dinner, Natalie watched Damien navigate conversations with practiced ease, turning business talk into casual banter and back again. She contributed when appropriate, discovering that her years managing the small bakery had given her more insight into business operations than she realized. Robert kept steering the conversation back to personal topics, probing for weaknesses. "So tell me, Natalie, how did you and Damien meet?" "I hadn't heard he was seeing anyone." The performance Damien reached across the table, taking her hand. The gesture looked natural, but Natalie felt electricity shoot through her at his touch. "We met at a wedding, actually. Sometimes the best connections happen when you least expect them." "A whirlwind romance, then," Robert observed, his skepticism obvious. "The best kind," Natalie heard herself say. She looked at Damien, surprised by how easily the words came. "Life's too short to overthink everything." Something flickered in Damien's eyes, gone before she could identify it. His thumb brushed against her palm, a gesture so subtle she almost thought she imagined it. The dinner stretched for 3 hours. By the time they left, Natalie's cheeks ached from smiling. In the car, she finally let herself relax, kicking off her heels with a groan. "You were incredible," Damien said, loosening his tie. "Robert was trying to rattle you, and you didn't give him an inch. Was that a test?" "Everything with Robert is a test." Damien looked at her thoughtfully. "But you passed with flying colors. You have good instincts." Natalie felt warmth bloom in her chest at the compliment. "So what happens now?" "Now we wait for the press to pick up on us. Robert will make sure they do. He wants to see if I'm distracted, vulnerable." Damien's jaw tightened. "He's been trying to acquire my company for 2 years. He thinks a new relationship will make me sloppy. Will it?" Damien met her gaze. "No, but he doesn't know that yet." The media stormed the next morning. Natalie woke to 17 missed calls and a text from Camilla that simply read, "Call me now." She scrolled through her phone with growing dread. Photos from the restaurant had already hit gossip sites. Headlines screamed variations of tech billionaire's mystery woman and Damien Cole off the market. Her doorbell rang insistently. Natalie peered through the peephole to find Camilla standing there, arms crossed, looking furious. "You're dating Damien Cole?" Camilla demanded the moment Natalie opened the door. "James's friend, Damien Cole? Are you doing this to get back at me?" "It's not about you," Natalie said quietly. "Everything is about me lately, isn't it?" Camilla's voice cracked. "My wedding? My husband? And now you're with one of his wealthy friends. What are you trying to prove?" The accusation stung because part of it was true. But only part. "I'm trying to live my own life, Camilla. For once, I'm doing something that has nothing to do with being your twin." Camilla's expression softened slightly. "Nat, I know the wedding was hard for you, but this isn't the answer. Guys like Damien Cole don't date girls like us. Whatever he's promised you, it won't last." "Maybe it doesn't need to last," Natalie replied. "Maybe some things are worth doing, even if they're temporary." After Camilla left, Natalie sat in her small apartment, staring at the photos online. In them, she and Damien looked natural together, like they belonged. The comments ranged from supportive to vicious, strangers dissecting her appearance, her background, her worthiness. Her phone rang. Damien's name flashed on the screen. "Saw the articles," he said without preamble. "How are you holding up?" "Is it always like this for you?" Natalie asked. "People thinking they have the right to judge every part of your life?" Always, Damien confirmed. You get used to it, or you learn to stop caring. I can end this arrangement if it's too much. Till he thought about Camilla's dismissive words, about all the years of being invisible, about the chance to be someone different, even if just for a little while. No, she said firmly, I'm not quitting. Crossing lines over the next few weeks, Natalie and Damien fell into an easy rhythm. Business dinners became second nature. She learned to navigate charity auctions and networking events, discovering a confidence she hadn't known she possessed. Damien was a surprisingly attentive teacher, preparing her for each event, never making her feel inadequate. But something else was happening too, something neither of them acknowledged. Conversations that should have stayed professional drifted into personal territory. His hand would linger on hers a moment too long. She would catch him watching her with an expression that had nothing to do with business strategy. One evening, after a particularly successful fundraiser, they shared a bottle of wine on the terrace of his penthouse apartment. The city sparkled below them, millions of lights painting the darkness. Can I ask you something? Natalie said, emboldened by the wine and the intimacy of the moment. Why me? You could have chosen anyone for this arrangement. Someone more experienced, more connected. Damien was quiet for a long moment. Because you were real, he finally said. Everyone in my world wears a mask. But when I saw you at that wedding, heartbroken and alone, you were the most genuine person in the room. I needed that. Needed what? A reminder that authenticity still exists. He turned to face her. Do you know what it's like to build something from nothing, to achieve every goal you set, and still feel empty? Success is supposed to mean something, but most days it just feels like going through motions. Natalie saw vulnerability in his eyes that she hadn't expected. The billionaire facade had cracked, revealing someone lonely and searching. Is that why you really offered me this deal? To feel something real? Maybe, Damien admitted. Or maybe I just didn't want you to feel invisible anymore. The confession hung between them, charged with meaning neither was ready to address. Natalie felt her carefully maintained boundaries beginning to crumble. The unwelcome, the visitor, their fragile equilibrium shattered the following week when Francesca Hunt, the city's most notorious gossip journalist, cornered Natalie outside her favorite coffee shop. Miss Brooks, Francesca called out, her recorder already running. A few questions about your relationship with Damien Cole. Natalie tried to brush past her, but Francesca blocked her path. Is it true you only met him at your sister's wedding? That you started dating him mere days after she married your ex-boyfriend? Some might say that's quite the rebound. No comment, Natalie said tightly. Sources close to the Cole family suggest this relationship appeared very suddenly. Almost staged, one might say. Care to respond to rumors that you have a contract with Mr. Cole? Natalie's blood ran cold. How could Francesca possibly know about their arrangement? She had been so careful. I don't know what you're talking about, she managed. Francesca smiled, predatory and satisfied. Come now, Miss Brooks. I've been doing this a long time. A pastry chef suddenly appearing on the arm of a billionaire, attending exclusive events, wearing designer clothes she couldn't possibly afford. It all seems rather convenient. Unless there's something you'd like to tell me about the true nature of your relationship. The truth comes out. Natalie pushed past Francesca and practically ran to her car. Her hands shaking as she drove to Damien's office. His assistant tried to stop her, but she burst into his private conference room, interrupting a meeting. We need to talk, she said urgently. Now, Damien took one look at her face and dismissed his colleagues. When they were alone, Natalie told him about Francesca's accusations. She knows, Natalie said, pacing frantically, or she suspects. Either way, she's digging, and if she finds proof of our contract, we're both ruined. Damien remained surprisingly calm. Let her dig. She won't find anything. How can you be so sure? Because the only people who knew about our arrangement were my lawyer, my assistant, and us. The contract was drawn up under attorney-client privilege. Francesca is bluffing, hoping you'll crack and give her confirmation. Natalie sank into a chair, her heart still racing. This was supposed to be simple. 3 months, no complications. Nothing is ever simple, Damien said gently. He knelt beside her chair, taking her hands in his. Natalie, if you want out, I'll understand. We can end this right now. I'll issue a statement saying, we decided to go our separate ways. You won't be implicated." She looked down at their joined hands, at the way his thumb traced gentle circles on her wrist. Somewhere along the way, his touch had become familiar, comforting. Somewhere along the way, she had stopped pretending. "What if I don't want out?" she whispered. Damien's eyes darkened. "Then we need to talk about what this really is, because we both know it stopped being fake weeks ago." The confession hung between them, terrifying and exhilarating. Natalie knew she should pull away, protect herself, maintain the boundaries they had established. Instead, she leaned forward, closing the distance between them. "This is a terrible idea," she murmured against his lips. "The worst," Damien agreed. Right before he kissed her, the kiss was everything their arrangement wasn't supposed to be. Passionate, real, complicated. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard, the careful walls between them completely demolished. "We broke our own rule," Natalie said. Damien touched her face tenderly. "Maybe some rules are meant to be broken." The morning after, Natalie woke in Damien's penthouse, as dawn painted the sky in shades of pink and gold. She lay still for a moment, listening to his steady breathing beside her, trying to process how completely her life had changed in just 6 weeks. The contract that had brought them together sat in a drawer somewhere, meaningless now. What they had become couldn't be defined by legal terms or time limits. But that realization brought fear as much as joy. She had fallen for him completely. That made her vulnerable in ways she had sworn never to be again. Damien stirred, his arm tightening around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" he murmured sleepily. "How this ends," Natalie admitted. He opened his eyes, fully awake now. "Who says it has to end?" "Everything ends eventually, especially things that start the way we did." Damien sat up, running a hand through his tousled hair. "Is that what you want? For this to end?" Natalie pulled the sheet around herself, suddenly feeling exposed. "I want to know what we're doing. Are we still pretending for the cameras, or is this real? Because I can't keep living in between." "It's real," Damien said without hesitation. "At least for me. The question is whether you're willing to give us a real chance." Before Natalie could respond, his phone buzzed insistently on the nightstand. He glanced at it and cursed softly. "It's my assistant. Something's wrong." The scandal breaks within an hour. They understood the magnitude of the problem. Francesca Hunt had published an explosive article claiming that Natalie and Damien's relationship was a calculated business arrangement designed to manipulate stock prices and distract from pending lawsuits against coal industries. While she didn't have proof of their contract, should have woven together enough circumstantial evidence to make the story credible. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Coal industry's stock dropped 8% in morning trading. Damien's board called an emergency meeting, and Natalie's phone exploded with calls from reporters, friends, and family demanding explanations. The worst call came from her mother. "Please tell me this isn't true," her mother begged. "Please tell me you haven't been pretending this whole time." Natalie couldn't find words that were both honest and comforting. "Mom, it's complicated. That's not a denial." Mother's voice broke. "Oh, Natalie, what have you done?" After she hung up, Natalie sat on Damien's couch, watching news coverage dissect every moment of their relationship. Commentators debated whether she was a gold digger, a con artist, or simply naive. No one considered that she might be a woman who had fallen in love. Damien emerged from his study, his expression grim. "My lawyers are preparing a statement. We can deny everything, claim the article is defamatory. Would we be lying?" Natalie asked quietly. He stopped, looking at her carefully. "What are you asking?" "The article is right, isn't it? This did start as a business arrangement. We did have a contract. Everything Francesca wrote is technically true, even if she doesn't have proof." "The facts are true," Damien said, "but the story is wrong. What we have now isn't fake. Can you prove that?" Natalie challenged. "Can you prove to the world, to your board, to my family, that somewhere along the way this became real? Or will everyone always wonder if we're just better actors than they thought?" The question hung heavy between them. Damien had no answer, and Natalie realized with sinking clarity that maybe there wasn't one. A difficult choice over the next week. The pressure intensified. Damien's board demanded he end the relationship publicly, claiming it was damaging the company's reputation. Robert Ashford, seeing an opportunity, renewed his acquisition offer with the veiled threat that he could make the scandal disappear. Natalie found herself trapped in her apartment. Afraid to venture out into the swarm of reporters camping outside, delivery drivers brought groceries. She watched her life unravel from behind closed curtains. Camilla was the only family member who visited. Slipping past photographers with sunglasses and a borrowed jacket, she sat across from Natalie in the tiny living room, studying her sister with an expression Natalie couldn't quite read. "I need to know something," Camilla finally said. "Do you love him?" The question caught Natalie off guard. She had been preparing for accusations, for judgment, not genuine curiosity. "Yes," she admitted. "I know how it sounds, given how we started, but yes, I love him." Camilla nodded slowly. "Then you need to fight for it. Stop hiding. Stop letting other people define your story. If it's real, make them see that." "Since when do you give me advice about standing up for myself?" Natalie asked, not unkindly. "Since I realized I've spent my whole life being the sister who got everything while you got nothing," Camilla said quietly. "James told me recently that he always felt like his feelings for you were more authentic, more challenging. He said loving me was easier because I expected less, demanded less. It made me wonder if I've been taking the easy path my whole life, while you've been fighting invisible battles." Natalie felt tears prick her eyes. "I don't want your pity, Camilla. It's not pity. It's respect." Camilla reached across and squeezed her hand. "You've always been stronger than me. Maybe it's time you let everyone else see that too." The public stand that evening, Natalie called Damien. "I want to hold a press conference," she said. "No lawyers, no prepared statements. Just us telling the truth." There was a long pause. "That's risky. Anything you say can and will be used against us." "They're already using everything against us," Natalie pointed out. "At least this way, they'll hear the truth. That we started with a business arrangement, but found something real. That we broke our own rules because some things are worth breaking rules for. The board will see it as confirming the allegations," Damien warned. "Then maybe you need a better board." Another pause. Then a low chuckle. "You've gotten bold, Miss Brooks." "I learned from the best, Mr. Cole." The press conference was scheduled for 2 days later at a neutral location, a small hotel conference room. Natalie spent the intervening time preparing, not with speeches or talking points, but by examining her own heart. She had spent her entire life being half of a pair, defined by her relationship to Camilla, to James, to other people's expectations. Meeting Damien had been about escaping that, about being seen as an individual, but somewhere along the way it had become about something more important. Seeing herself clearly for the first time. Facing the truth, the conference room was packed with reporters, cameras, and curious onlookers. Natalie sat beside Damien at a simple table, her hands clasped in front of her. She had chosen her own clothes this time, a simple blue dress from her closet, her hair styled the way she had always worn it. No designer labels, no borrowed elegance. "Just herself," Damien began, his voice steady. "Thank you all for coming. We asked for this opportunity to address the recent allegations directly and honestly." He explained the origins of their arrangement, the contract they had signed, the mutual benefits they had sought. Reporters scribbled furiously, cameras flashed, and Natalie felt exposed in a way she had never experienced. Then it was her turn. She took a deep breath and spoke from her heart. "When I met Damien Cole at my sister's wedding, I was at the lowest point of my life. I felt invisible, inadequate, like I would always be living in someone else's shadow. The arrangement he proposed seemed like a chance to be someone different, to matter for once." She paused, gathering her courage. "But here's what I didn't expect. I didn't become someone different. I became more myself. Through his eyes, I saw my own worth. Through his confidence in me, I found my own confidence. Yes, we started with a contract. But we fell in love despite it, not because of it. Francesca Hunt stood up, her voice cutting through the room. How convenient that you discovered this love only after being caught. How do we know this isn't just another performance? Natalie met her gaze steadily. You don't. You'll believe what you want to believe, regardless of what I say. But I've spent my entire life worrying about what people think, trying to fit into boxes they created for me. I'm done with that. Damien and I are together because we choose to be, not because it's convenient or profitable or good for anyone's image. If that's not enough for you, that's your problem, not ours. The room erupted in shouted questions. Damien reached over and took her hand, simple gesture that said everything words couldn't. The aftermath of the press conference didn't magically solve everything. Damien's board remained skeptical, though they backed down from their ultimatum. The stock price stabilized but didn't fully recover. Public opinion remained divided between those who found their story romantic and those who saw it as calculated. But something fundamental had shifted. Natalie stopped reading the comments, stopped caring about the headlines. She returned to her work at the bakery, finding joy again in creating beautiful things with her own hands. She took on freelance design projects, building a portfolio that was entirely hers. Damien faced his own reckonings. Robert Ashford's acquisition attempt failed when key investors sided with Damien, pressed by his refusal to compromise his personal life for business expediency. He restructured his board, bringing in people who valued integrity over profits. 3 months after the scandal broke, Natalie and Damien went back to where it all began, Riverside Estate, where Camilla and James were hosting a small anniversary gathering. This time, Natalie walked in without fear, without shame, with Damien's hand in hers. She greeted her sister warmly, congratulated James sincerely, and accepted their happiness without bitterness. Later, standing on the same terrace where she had once felt so alone, Damien pulled her close. Do you regret it? He asked. Everything that happened? Natalie looked out at the sunset painting the sky in brilliant colors, then back at the man who had challenged her to be more than she believed she could be. Not for a second, she said. I found myself by losing everything I thought I wanted. That's worth any amount of scandal. Even if people never stop questioning us? Let them question, Natalie replied. We know the truth. That's enough. Damien smiled and kissed her softly, a promise and a declaration wrapped in one gesture. Around them, the party continued, but in that moment, they were the only two people in the world. Natalie Brooks had spent her life being half of something, the invisible twin, the forgotten one. But she had discovered something profound. Wholeness didn't come from being seen by everyone. It came from seeing yourself clearly and having the courage to stand in that truth. Regardless of who was watching, and sometimes, if you were very lucky, you found someone willing to stand there with you, not because a contract demanded it, but because love made no other choice possible. Epilogue. 6 months. Later, the small bakery had a new sign. Brooks and Cole Artisan Desserts. Inside, Natalie worked alongside 2 assistants she had hired, creating custom cakes that had earned a waiting list 3 months long. Damien had invested in the expansion, but only after Natalie insisted on signing a proper business partnership agreement. She was done with handshake deals. No matter how much she loved the person offering, Damien stopped by every evening after work, loosening his tie as he sampled whatever new creation she was testing. They had bought a brownstone together, something neither too large nor too small, a space that felt like theirs rather than his. The gossip had finally faded, replaced by newer scandals and fresher controversies. Occasionally, someone would recognize them and whisper, but mostly, they moved through the world like any other couple. Navigating the ordinary challenges of building a life together, Camilla visited often, her friendship with Natalie deepening now that they had finally stopped competing for space neither actually needed. James had become a pleasant acquaintance, the sting of old hurt replaced by genuine goodwill. One evening, as Natalie locked up the bakery, she found an envelope tucked under the door. Inside was their original contract, marked void in red ink, with a note in Damien's handwriting, replacing this with something better. Will you marry me? She turned to find him standing behind her, holding a simple ring that caught the streetlight like captured starlight. No contract this time, he promised. Just two people choosing each other every single day. Natalie laughed, tears streaming down her face as she said yes. Their story had begun with a lie, built on pretense and mutual need. But it had transformed into something neither had expected. A love that was messy and complicated and absolutely real. The kind of love that didn't fit neatly into contracts or conform to other people's expectations. The kind of love worth every risk, every scandal, every moment of doubt. The kind of love that could only be found by someone brave enough to stop hiding and start living. And as Damien slipped the ring onto her finger, Natalie realized she had finally become exactly who she was always meant to be. Not the invisible twin. Not someone's shadow, but a woman who had fought for her own happiness and won.